one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
Is this the year that Bitcoin's finally going to break out and head up to that 200K mark? Or are we about to go down into the abyss? Because since 2026 has started, everybody, we've got some upside price action. Of course, this is only on the 3-minute chart. If we take it out a little bit wider and, for instance, look at the daily, we're still sitting very precariously on this shelf. I got some very incredible charts we're going to be breaking down today of what's going on with liquidity, massive moves happening in that regard. What's happened in the past when these things have happened, what's going on with Bitcoin, and also some very, very key charts and messages from CZ, from Elon Musk, and some other indicators about what's happening in 2026. So welcome to Discover Crypto. Welcome back. I know they had the morning show today, but this is my first show back since the 2026 year has begun. We got to strap in because I think this is going to be an incredible year for the crypto markets. There's going to be a lot of people that get overwhelmingly wrecked because they jump and chomp at the bit just too regularly. We saw almost $200 million in liquidations of shorts earlier today with this move that we've recently seen to the upside on Bitcoin, on ETH, on some of your other alts. And by the way, I've got a great video coming out tomorrow that's going to really show you what's going on with the altcoin ecosystem going on into 2026. But today, it is Friday, January 2nd. My name's Kelly Kellum. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the family. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding the bell. Now let's dive into this because we got some things. Price action has been moving to the upside, but something that we always want to pay attention to when price action is moving up is that oh so dreaded CME gap that we do have below us. We've had a nice little run to the upside here since the start of the year, which is basically right here, moving all the way up here. We actually had a little bit of a run above this. We do have a CME gap below us down here to about 88,000, 88,100. Now, these more often than not do get filled. So I would just be cautious to see what the price action as it's moving up right now doesn't mean up only. In fact, we've already seen a little bit of a retrace. If we come back over here to the 15-minute chart, so exciting. Let's trap the bulls. Now let's come down. Let's come back down, trap the bears. The question is going to be, what direction does this actually continue on into? So because that CME futures gap, let's actually pull up the CME futures chart. That would be right here, basically 88.6, 88.7, all the way down here to, about 88.1. Now, remember, these prices are just a slight bit different. You see this 89.674, and this is 90.195. So there's a little bit of a difference there, a little contango going on in the markets, a little more expensive on futures, but that would show that this would probably be about 88.5 on the spot market and down to about 88 even on the spot market. So if this does come down into here, it's not the end of the world. In fact, as bullish as I am, and I'm very bullish, as bullish as I am, I do expect we're still going to be, I don't know what's going on there. I do expect that we're going to still see that move to the downside that I've been talking about right here, getting some sort of washout down here, most likely to test this soon. Why is this? Well, I'm going to show you a couple key charts to highlight this, but in the same time that I'm saying, I do still think we're going to get some sort of move, some sort of washout move to the downside. Things are actually setting up to be overwhelmingly bullish going into 2026. So that should bring some confidence if we are going to get a washout to the downside, that you can be prepared when it happens so you can take advantage of the move rather than being taken advantage of emotionally by the move and making silly choices. Vision Pulsed Fat Boy said ETH will hit 4K this month. Whoa, let's actually get that. Everybody in the chat right now, let me know what's the highest price point you think ETH will hit this month, January 2026. Let's see what you guys have to say. Also, after you do that one, say what price do you think Bitcoin is going to get to by the end of January? Now, with Bitcoin and Ethereum, there's a little bit of a caveat there because remember, at the end of January, we have that oh so dreaded deadline that could be overwhelmingly bullish. It also could be overwhelmingly bearish on the risk markets, whether or not we actually go into another government shutdown. Because remember, that can was only kicked down to the road to the end of this month. So let's pay attention to some of the risk concern that we're probably going to see in the market between now and then, and hopefully it gets resolved before that deadline. But there's some things that we need to pay attention to. Now, first up, let's talk about CZ. Not only CZ, but Elon Musk out here saying that 2026 is going to be awesome. Keep building. And this is never stopping. I host so many different shows over on the Mario Nawfal channel with different developers, different projects, different builders in the ecosystem. Nobody has been dissuaded or slowed down whatsoever in the face of the speculative market frustrating retail. The builders are still building. In fact, Vitalik Buterin actually put out a great some words about the roadmap in 2026. Watch the video tomorrow, the Saturday video here on Discover Crypto. I break down what that might mean for Ethereum and also how it could be a very major catalyst for institutions within the altcoin ecosystem. So watch that video tomorrow. But also Elon Musk here, 2026 will be a banger. Okay, these guys are saying some stuff, but what does it really mean? First off, CZ, in the next decade, the biggest FOMO in human history will be for Bitcoin. And I overwhelmingly agree with this as well. In fact, I did a post earlier. Let me actually go out of the screen real quick. I did a post just a little while ago. I saw somebody was debating the gold is so much better than Bitcoin. I don't think people really understand. They don't truly understand some of the core differences that really highlight the major difference in Bitcoin and gold. Now, I don't dislike gold. I think gold is a phenomenal asset. It's been around 5,000 plus years. Of course, it's going to be a major store of value. It's also a signal based on historical trends over the last hundreds of years with the stock markets about what's going on with government intervention in money markets and global finance and all this and how this is going to indicate what may be happening next. But when you just talk about the tenets of Bitcoin versus gold, let's highlight something super simple. Say you have $100 million. I'm in France. I want to sell you $100 million and you're in America. Do you realize that transaction is going to cost somewhere between $1 to $2 million? And it's going to take 2 to 7 days, but more likely, I would guess that would more likely be like 7 to 14 days because you have to move it out of your vault. You have to have transport. You have to have security. The weight, the amount of weight that would be in terms of the tonnage to basically transport that across the ocean, deliver it, security, all these things. That costs a lot of money. And it could cost you $1 to $2 million for this $100 million transaction. But then if you did it with Bitcoin, it would be 30 cents to $10. $10 would be kind of the overwhelmingly abnormal fee. It'd probably be somewhere sub $1. And it would happen in a matter of basically 10 minutes to 60 minutes, under an hour. And you have the immediate transportability and the store of that value and how easy it is to transmit. Now, is Bitcoin ever going to fully replace gold? I don't know, maybe, but I don't really care if it does. We have a world, especially a global financial market that is large enough that it makes sense that we have different ideas and different opportunities and different functions for different assets. And that's okay. Will Bitcoin replace the dollar? Some people are doomers out here saying it's going to happen in the next 10 years. Dollar's going to be around for the rest of my life. There's no question about that. I'm 41. I'm about to be 42. That's not going anywhere. There's too entrenched in the global financial system. However, Bitcoin, I think, is going to take more and more of a market share. Right now, it's at like 1 or 2%, something ridiculously small. I think that, in the next 30 years, that's going to creep up to 15% to 20% to so on and so forth of basically this behemoth of a financial product in the global financial landscape. The point is there's so much room to grow, and we are still so early when you consider people are worried on this downtrend right here. And remember, we've been here before. We've seen this before there. We've seen it here. We've seen it. I mean, all these and it's the times in memoriam for Bitcoin that people keep calling it dead. But the interesting thing about Bitcoin and the worrisome nature that people have when you have a dip, people are forgetting that maybe in this dip, maybe it does go lower and you're not going to make your bullish money, meaning price go up, you make money, because you're leveraging everything, or you're expecting to buy and maybe in 2 weeks you're going to be rich. It doesn't work that way. And the assets that can do that you can be rich next week by buying it, they are astronomically higher risk profile as well. So you have as much, aka actually more of a chance of losing money on those high risk assets than turning some multi 5x, 10x, 20x within the next month. Bitcoin is primed for basically the rest of our time. Everyone that's alive right now watching this, for the rest of our time on Earth, it will go up and it will go down. But what we're going to see, that sounds like a croc. I don't know why that keeps trying to get me to upgrade, because I have the pro plan. But what we're going to see over time is much like we've seen on the history of Bitcoin so far. Yes, it's going up and going down, but what do you notice? Higher lows all the way throughout. Higher lows, meaning even with all this, turn off all the stuff there. Even with all of the oscillations and the volatility, this is still establishing higher bases each time it has these fierce crashes. But there's something pivotably different now than we've ever seen in the Bitcoin ecosystem, which is very interesting going into the time that we're at right now, where people are so worried, but we're actually in a time with Bitcoin that's the most positive, real asymmetric bet that it's ever been. And that is world governments on board. Institutions stacking on a 10x level from what we saw a year and a half ago, and only getting stronger, becoming entrenched in the global financial system, as well as a financialization of Bitcoin products. So while people are still worried, and I get it, people don't like buying something and seeing a dip in the asset that they bought, that some of you might have taken 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, really thinking about it, and finally saying, now is the time to pull the trigger, and you buy, and what happens? You're like, man, I'm down though. Well, people have been down historically regularly throughout a bull trend. The question is, if you're going to make it not only in Bitcoin, but any market, is identifying these times when everybody else is scared and you take advantage of it, especially when you have the fundamental advantages and the landscape that has just absolutely blossomed in a major way in the last several years for Bitcoin. The best is overwhelmingly still yet to come. And not only that, it's not just hope. It's not just fear. It's not, I mean, even the discourse that we've seen in mainstream media has absolutely changed. Why do I say that? You come over here and you look at this chart, Bitcoin obituaries. This is the number of times things have been reported on major platforms, like, mainstream news, CNN, Yahoo, whatever, all these different ABC, you name it, that Bitcoin is dead. See this? Do you guys realize Bitcoin died almost 125 times in 2017? It died. And they wrote that meaning that it was never coming back. Well, here's 2017. Here's when people are saying that it's dying. Boom, coming down. They said it was dying on the way down. They said it was dying. They said it was dying. They said it was dying. Oh my God, it did die. They were vindicated because there was a move that felt fierce. 83% downside price action. Man, it's dead. Let me just take you down memory lane. Remember this? We talked about this the other day, but you remember back here in early 2000s, .com bubble crash, NVIDIA, the most valuable company in the world, in the history of the world now, had a 90% washout before then having an absolutely fierce rally back up 1,500%, only to die again. Oh my God, it seems like we need to find things that die regularly, because that means if they're dying regularly and going to new highs, at least in this case, this is a metaphor, but you're seeing just the strength absolutely. God, this is just insane. And so when you come, higher. But when you come back over here to Bitcoin and you realize that this has died so many times in years past, so many times. However, in 2025, it's the first year that we just got out of with the frustrating price action, yet the way well more entrenched position that Bitcoin is on the global financial stage. So entrenched, in fact, that there were 0 Bitcoin obituaries published in 2025. And simple and as silly and as stupid as this post may seem, this is an overwhelming turning point in how the mainstream news media, financial players, the fact that BlackRock's involved, Fidelity is involved, the president of the United States is involved, El Salvador, Bhutan, Kazakhstan, China. I mean, you name the list. The list is getting longer and longer on a sovereign level, getting involved with, basically coming up with different Bitcoin strategies for their countries. Not to mention the number of major institutions that have gotten involved over the last year and a half. So the mainstream news media has also shifted their discourse. So even though this doesn't seem like it really impacts much, for me, this is a great thermometer, a great temperature check on where Bitcoin's sitting, the sort of the change in tone, the change in lens that the world has about Bitcoin. This is absolutely way more bullish than you think it is. Now let's continue on here because we also have, hey Grok, remove the bad currency from this picture. AI looking at stuff like this. Which one is the bad currency? Oh, the dollar is a bad currency. So even AI knows what's going on. I just thought that was quite funny. Now, when we're talking about what's going to happen in 2026, we're in it. It's January 2nd. The 4-year cycle says the cycle's over. The 4-year cycle says we're in for about 12 months of bearishness, frustration. I do not contend with that. I do not agree. That is the 4-year cycle based on what's happening with the halving, Bitcoin halving. Now, realize that the Bitcoin halving also has had a reduced impact on supply by 93%. What do I mean by that? Early Bitcoin mining blocks was 50 Bitcoin rewarded per block mined, 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. Now we're down to 3.125. That's about a 93% reduction on the supply of the supply dynamic, the impact of new supply getting cut in half. Okay. For those of you that are new, like even my mom, as much as I'm so involved with all this, when the halving happened a year and a half ago, my mom said, "Hey Kelly, are you all right after the halving?" I was like, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "Well, doesn't your holdings get cut in half?" No, guys, you got to understand the basics. And it's just, I'm not making fun of my mom, but it's a great lens as to the majority of the world has no idea. They think Bitcoin's expensive, whether it's 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, because they can't afford one Bitcoin. Most people don't even realize you can buy up to 100 million divisions. An individual Satoshi is 0.00000000001, right? So you can fractionalize this asset class. And in addition to that, Bitcoin is not, the price action isn't only subject to what's happening with the halving for miners. When you look at the data and forget that the halving even happens, here's Bitcoin, here's the BBW, which sounds something like should be on the hub, right? No, this is Bollinger Band width, how volatile versus how not volatile things are. Very volatile up here. And also you get the breakdown. Very volatile, get the breakdown. Peak volatility, get the breakdown. Down here, price action is constricted. It hasn't really been very volatile. Look at this. It's the lowest it's ever been, right? Then we got copper and gold. On the breakout, this gold is rising, copper is not really doing much, and then all of a sudden, copper takes the run following gold. Well, let's look at this breakout. Boom. Where is this breakout at? Right here. Well, that's right here, preceding the major run-up. Right here again, preceding the major run-up. Okay, here we are at the decision point. Hasn't happened yet, and I expect sometime in the near future, probably in the first half of this year, we are going to get that breakout, and I expect to see a similar response also in Bitcoin. And it's not just because of the copper to gold ratio. It's a signal about where risk is in the market. And then you also can see this PMI, the producers manufacturers index, right? And we see these tops, it's correlated about where the tops have been. When you see this bottom out, it's been about halfway through the cycle before the run. Bottom out before the run. We're kind of just been consolidating sideways with so far sideways that we have the lowest amount of volatility that we've seen in a before. And everything else just feels like it's on the cusp for the move. Now, remember, we have that delayed gratification, frustration station going on with the government shutdown. We're still waiting on clarity on what's happening with that into the end of this month. So I expect to see, unless something's clarified before the end of the month, this will probably hang out as it is with some choppiness. Like today, Bitcoin's pumping. Bitcoin's not pumping, everybody. Ethereum's not pumping. When you get a small, we have to title it that way because that's what people see. They go, it's moving up $19. It's pumping. It's not freaking pumping. How do we know that? Because if we come back over here, let's go to turn on the color, the lines and the colors. We do have a slight move to the upside. But look at where this is at. The price action currently is basically just following a trend, very slight trend here, right into where all of this price interactivity has been. It cannot get through that. There are some signs in the near term that are showing more bullishness than we would expect, not we would expect, more bullishness, more things on the side of bullishness, but everything is so primed with expectation in this market that every time the market moves up this amount, $200 or $300 million in shorts get liquidated. And then people go long. And then this comes right back down to the downside and it liquidates just as many longs. People need to be a little bit more calm right now until the signals fully align and their setup is there. The setup is there, but the confirmations have not yet happened. Now, when we continue on through this, we also have some other things here. That is the signal that's really going to drive things. The Fed balance sheet, quantitative easing. They call it repurchases overnight. Well, it's quantitative easing. The Fed's balance sheet just surged plus 24 billion. Remember last night they did a reverse repo, like I think $74.6 billion injected in the market. So this doesn't look like much. This is a balance sheet on the Fed just rolling off. But if you zoom down here, look at 2020. Look at this. This is right after COVID, boom, when they printed. And then, massive money shoot to the upside on price action. I mean, come back over here to 2020. What do we see? Sideways with the COVID washout. Oh my God, stabilized. Remember that massive up signal that we just saw? Where was that at? Right here. Boom. This is buying. The Fed just absolutely stacking things in the market. What happened to Bitcoin? Also stackage maximus to the upside. I want to be getting in, not when this is here, as this is starting to curve up and we're seeing the conditions for risk to really set up, even if the Bitcoin price drops lower, down to that $68,000 to $76,000 level that I've been highlighting for quite some time. And in fact, I think it's going to be on the higher side of that 72 to 78, somewhere in there, a dip into there, setting up a bullish divergence while the Fed is printing. That to me screams, let's shake some more. It's right here. We're going. No, let's shake off the longs. Boom. Then let's go. Similarly, what we're seeing right now, and again, I just cannot tell you how similar these two periods look right here, but we have not gotten that washout to the downside, And that is important because that's where you get the bull div showing that the hidden underneath, the strength underneath was setting up for the slingshot. We have not yet gotten that. We don't have to get it, but it'll be a much more convincing play versus if this just pushes up into 95 and then rejects again, right? And we can see this. Look, whale games, money flow up, money flow down. Let's flood it. Let's evaporate it. It's essentially what is happening. Okay. So here's the Fed sheet. This doesn't look like anything. So let's look at what this actually is. I got this on the Bitcoin strategy platform. Let's turn off the show liquidity year-over-year change. This is just global liquidity. What does that include? Combined U.S. Basically M2 money supply, Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, People's Bank of China, Bank of England, basically the world, right? The most major players out there and how much liquidity is out there from governments. I want you to notice flat. This is kind of actually pulling back a little bit, but mostly for the most part flat, right? What do we see here? Large impulse right here happens right when COVID happens. So this front ran the major uptick that we saw here on Bitcoin. Similarly, this is remember the last move we just talked about? We've been talking about this move right here. Oh my God, it's over. Oh, and then boom, it shot up. And on this day right here, April 7th, I posted and talked about it on the Discover Crypto, on the BitLab Academy stream, and actually posts on my page that this was going to be breaking out back bullish out of this because we had massive bullish divergence. We had a flood of the money flow flipping back over. The setup was there to make that run. And then not only that, we also see at that same portion right here, look, on the downtrend right there, we also got, boom, the divergence of money coming in while they were still shaking you out. So here we are again. Let's actually turn on the year over year. This shows you how much basically the movement in or out, compared to last year. It's a great way to kind of zoom in on this, if you will. As you see, as this is dropping down, we see that we're having a divergence of fuel going in the car. And you're telling me that car is not about to get on the racetrack? You're out of your mind. Now, it might take one more pit stop to fix one more wheel, which AKA would be another dip to get the perfect bull setup, which would be a move below $80,000 and having the RSI remain high. But we're getting money coming in. This is the last time it happened. Look, money came in right here, starting on this middle line right here, even as this was dropping, and then that forced, I don't want to say forced, but major impact on the this asset seeing a nice slingshot move to the upside. Same thing right here on the 7-month sideways price action that chopped. Oh my God. Well, then what happened? Well, during that time, we had just before it, we had a reduction in liquidity. So it makes sense that the price action kind of stabilized and chopped around a zone. And then right here, before we got the move, kind of pops up a little bit, but right here is when we started seeing a pretty big move to the upside, right in this zone. And then what happened? Then we got that slingshot from 48 to $109,000. My point is, everybody's so focused on this chart. 4-year cycle, it's going to happen. This is a double top, and this is just like what we saw back here. See, look at the shape of here, look at this, and we're in February of 2022, and this broke down, and it's going to, I think you're full of shit. Absolutely. Absolutely. I still think we're going to get another impulse to the downside that is going to probably be the biggest wreckage trap in history for people that believe that this is over. If we come back down to the 73, 70, 69,000 zone, while we're seeing global liquidity increase, then it would be, for me, from my portfolio, this is not financial advice, from my portfolio, I cannot imagine not buying into a dip while global liquidity is rising, and there's only indication it's about to arise a hell of a lot more in the next 6 months and beyond, in addition to a new Fed chair, in addition to, so guys, we are in such a dream scenario right now, if we take our emotions out of it, that we realize that we're here. If you can hold on, if you can stack in dips, you've made it. You're going to be talking about this for the rest of your life if you can hold on for these next 3 months and take advantage of what's going on. Again, this isn't financial advice. It's a strategy advice. This is what I see. You got to make a determination about what you see. But there's more to the story than that, right? There's more to the story. We've also got a lot of whales right at this level. Boom, whales are back, baby. Address is holding 1,000 plus Bitcoin just flipped from net selling to heavy accumulation. But sometimes it's not everything that it seems. Again, I haven't looked super deep into this, but this does feel good. But how sure are we? How sure are we? Well, we also see realized cap for new whales. Okay, this makes it feel even stronger. Let me look at this coming in to this dip. But then at the same time, we've got other data. Got to pay attention to all the data. No, says Julio Moreno, and I'm not sure. I need to look more into this because this is, I don't want to say confusing, because there's so many things to consider now with ETFs, with exchanges, with OTC desks, with the rotation of what's going on-chain signals, how they're being deciphered. It says most Bitcoin whale data out there has been affected by exchanges consolidating a lot of their holdings into fewer addresses with larger balances. This is why whales seem to have accumulated a lot of coins recently. Maybe. And I'm going to have to look into this because this does, I don't want to say change. It just makes you realize you have to really understand the lens of what's going on. And in fact, because we have on-chain data, how perception can be shifted based on the way you could be creatively accounting and managing funds, whether they're doing it for that purpose or not is interesting. But we have the data. We have data that removes all exchange addresses, and the data shows whale balance is declining right here. So there's a little bit of 6 one way, half a dozen the other. So I just wanted to point that out. As exciting as this is, and there are an astronomical, it's gone more than 10x in terms of the number of institutions stacking. We had, I think, $32 billion in ETF inflows in 2025, despite many of the outflows that we saw. 32 billion. Bitcoin being the largest, obviously, ETF inflow. But this does feel good. The question is, how skewed potentially is it? Well, let's get back to just the data on the chart, because we do also have other things like I've highlighted with the Russell 2000. Russell 2000, when it breaks out, it's a great indication also for what's happening in the risk matrix. Well, we got the Russell's kind of been dumping on the 30 minute earlier today, and we did see, come to that wash back and forth. So we're just going to keep an eye on that and what's happening with the Russell 2000 over the next. Let's actually pull it up. Russell 2000. Where is it? Russell. What is that? It's index. What am I doing here? Oh, Here we go. Here we go. Why does this keep trying to get me? I have premium. I don't need ultimate. I'm ultimately premium, baby. Listen, okay, I'm about to, all right, so yeah, look, just barely breaking to new all-time highs there. It's looking weak-ish as this is pushing up. We've got a bear div on the RSI here. Again, this might give us some context as what may be happening with the risk sentiment in the market. And then, of course, we've got the, just no signal here. Look, it's bearish, but comes back right. It's just chop city. This goes back to my point about the end of January, the hesitation around risk coming in because of some of the lackluster clarity about what's happening with a government shutdown. So getting out of that one, we got that. This is the next one I wanted to show. All right, so the Sharpe ratio. Bitcoin Sharpe ratio has turned negative. It's all over, everybody. The Sharpe ratio measures adjusted return, right? Sharpe less than 0, in which we're under 0 now. This is 0 right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse. Yeah, so we're just under it. Where to go? Sharpe less than 0 means high risk, low return. Capital is not being efficiently rewarded. Historically, Sharpe greater than 1 is good. So when this is high, this means there's been a lot of returns. So this can be a little bit, I want to say lackluster, a little bit of a lagging data indicator because it's showing right now we've had a bit of a pullback. And there's some people it's kind of been in the near term because we had a down year last year that this is showing to the downside. Now, am I expecting this to come all the way down to here? No, I'm looking at this much like earlier. I was talking about mid-cycle. Well, let's look mid-cycle here. What happened here? We had a run up. We had a sell off. This came down about half the way, about where we're at right now. Let's look back in 2016, 2015 into 2017 here. Had a nice run up here and a little bit of a stabilization there. And the Sharpe ratio also this is a little bit higher, but I think this is kind of also reminiscent of what's happening with people's lackluster expectation fractures that they've had about the 4-year cycle. And it's not on. We're going to have the institutions absolutely moonshot everything and it doesn't happen. There's just confusion in the market right now because the way Bitcoin sits in the global financial landscape is just now becoming defined. We have to realize that it's just now becoming defined. So with this sitting right here, to me, this is a non-signal. It doesn't even matter. I just wanted to highlight this because some people will see this and go, well, this is going to have to go all the way down here before we get a bottom I don't see that happening. Okay. Then we got the alts, everybody, the alts. And again, tune into the video. I just did it earlier for tomorrow. Talks about what's happening, the impact of what's happening with altcoins in 2026. Is the narrative for altcoins canceled? You're going to have to tune in tomorrow to see that here on the Discover Crypto channel. If you're watching on through the BitLab channel, come over to the Discover Crypto channel tomorrow. Make sure you're following and watch that video. I think it's going to be like 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. But this is the dominance. This is good. Bearish dominance. If you're an altcoin hopeful, you want to see this. Bearish dominance is bullish for alts. Okay. If this does stay under this EMA ribbon, which is starting to flip, meaning the faster moving averages collectively are all starting to flip, meaning you're getting more of a barrier, more of a resistance level. There's been more persistent price action below the ribbon. So it's all starting to flip over. If this does get rejected here, that would be what you'd want to see for alts. But tune in tomorrow. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But then we've also got, did I delete the other thing? Then we also have the fact that for Bitcoin, despite all the bearishness that we're seeing in the timeline, I wouldn't even say it in the price action, we've only just done what I've been calling for throughout this entire year plus, is on these moves, the establishment of the bull trend, we have large impulses. This is basically money flow. You're looking at money flow on the macro money flow signal on Bitcoin. You see these large impulses where money floods in and then it washes them out and it comes back, boom, taps right into zero, meaning some money was pulled out of the market, right? On aggregate, on the total Bitcoin ecosystem. Well, you have run up, reset both times, smaller run up, reset, and then this expansion. So here we go. This right here to me is akin to what we saw back here in 2015, 2016. Run up, reset, run up. So that's the run up, run up. Now we come back down. We have the secondary thing that's a little lower right here. And then we get basically a setup. And again, I don't think this exact pattern is going to play out. The point here is that I truly do expect that we're about mid-run, maybe a little bit beyond, like right in this zone right here of the run, right? Now, there's no telling what the shape is going to look like on the upside because we have institutional players that have put the money that can move this market on a grand scale, right? So I don't know if we're going to get that parabola, if we're just going to get a slow stepping burn all the way up for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, have a sell-off mid-year that then continues. We all have to be adaptable here because the big boys just got in the room and they want to make sure that they could take advantage of this market in any way possible. So you've got to make sure you don't get taken advantage of. And this is just resetting like we have in every bull trend. This is the capitulation kind of setup where you see in the bull trend, capital flow goes back to negative. So just wanted to highlight that. And then we got some signal here just on some basic chart patterns. You can call this an Adam and Eve, which is basically the V-shaped recovery and then a sort of slow burn back up and then a launch. But then you also have another way to look at it. This very well could also be a Wyckoff accumulation where you have the run up, the sell off, the run up. And then what have I been talking about? That move to the downside. Let's come back over to it. The move to the downside that is a little bit deeper than we saw previously. Where is this? Here we go. 4-hour chart. Double click here. This is not what I want right here. Here we go. So we have this move, the run up, come down, another attempt. But what I'm looking for is this move right here where we get lower than we had on the impulses down before. So we kind of have this move. It does look like an Adam and Eve pattern. So this very well could just blast up from here. But because the sensitivity of risk in the market, I put it at a higher probability that we will get some, even if we push all the way up here to 95, that we will get some sort of impulse that retests this region, sub 84. I would say somewhere between 84 and $77,000. And in fact, I'd like to see it go below this level right here, this 80,500 mark, because that would give us the best setup to do that. But it doesn't have to. This is the thing about TA. TA is so subjective and everybody can reverse engineer and told you so and all that. But I'm giving you all the opportunities here. I'm giving you all the opportunities. This very well could be an Adam and Eve that breaks out from here, finds support and launches. It's my opinion based on what I'm looking at that we're going to see something more like this. Still kind of an Adam and Eve, but Wyckoff accumulation would mean we would get one more impulse that washes people out before launch. So I'm curious what you guys think. Which one do you think is more likely? Adam and Eve, put A and E, or do you think that the Wyckoff? Let me know what you think there in the live comments. And then, of course, remember, thinking about what's happening in 2026, everybody, we have the world's largest custody bank talking about tokenization as a megatrend. We have JP Morgan talking about, not only tokenization, but integrating, doing things on Base Network, what they're doing with integrations with stablecoins, Bank of America, MasterCard. I mean, we have just cracked the door open for the world to really move en masse into Bitcoin. And the world's largest financial organizations are getting everything set so that they can take advantage of that. So right now is not a time to be bothered with the fear of, is the bull cycle over? You're out of your mind, in my opinion, if you think that. I think we could have a bearish month or even two, but I think 2026, we are going to see new highs. And I do think you're going to see what I think about alts in that video tomorrow. But that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm feeling. And we do on the way up, for those that are bullish, for those that are bullish and expecting things just to push up overwhelmingly from here, we do have to very much pay attention and watch this basically $99,000 to $107,000 zone. Short-term holder cost basis is right about $100,000, $99,005. But then the 200-day moving average, the 21-week moving average, there's a lot of resistance here that there could be a dead cat bounce, basically a bounce up to about that level, which would also be just under the golden pocket zone as well, and then reject. We could have, we could have a whole bearish first quarter. If things are going to be overwhelmingly bullish for 2026, it wouldn't shock me if they really convinced people the bull market was over by having a bearish quarter. But I just don't see that happening with, I think it's less likely to happen that way than having maybe one more washout and then start slow burning to the upside, especially with all this data coming out with the money printing, the Fed buybacks, Treasury, what's going on with the stimulus going on in China and Japan. And all that, not to mention the video I did, what was it, Wednesday, Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, the 2-year and 10-year golden cross on the bonds, really kind of giving a signal that we may be going back to a risk zone. So we got to be patient here. We have to allow the market to do what the market's going to do. Take advantage of opportunities. I think they're elongating how long some of these things are taking to resolve. They're boring people out because corrections aren't just up or down. All right. You can't just have a breakout or a breakdown. There's time-based corrections too, where price travels sideways and just exhausts people. And then the market just absolutely launches. But that's all I got for today, everybody. I love you. I appreciate you. I really hope you all have an absolutely wonderful start of the year. Balance yourself in some gratitude today. Don't only watch YouTube content, Twitter content, news, all that. Find some comedy this week. Find some laughter with friends. Share some feelings. Let's start this year strong and hold ourselves accountable. Make sure, if you're not yet, that you're following me over here at Kelly Kellum. It's 2 L's twice, not 3 L's, not a dot, not a one. A lot of fake accounts of me at Kelly Kellum. Give me a follow there. And I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Hope you all have an absolutely phenomenal day and weekend. Be patient for a little bit of volatility chop this weekend. They're setting people up for excitement and for failure on here. But you know what? I did not show you the ETH chart, so I got to show you the ETH chart. Sorry, there's just so much we're doing all over and over and over again. But look, guys, we're still in the SSRI zone, this depression zone. Everybody goes, but we're pumping. Yes, we're pumping within a tight range that we've been in for some time. So to me, this is not a pump. We're not really in a pump, in my opinion, on ETH until we break out of this zone right here, which would be about 3,300. We have a line that comes across here, horizontal, and this descending level of resistance. This is where we can start talking about some potential pumpage. Now, I go into a lot more detail tomorrow on the video I did with ETH, with BNB, with Cardano. This is starting to look like a decent setup with the RSI, with some of the things on the other time frames with money flow and so on and so forth. But tune into that video tomorrow. I think it's 10:30 or 11 a.m. on Discover Crypto. I love you all. That's all I got. Thank you to our channel partners, BitcoinIRA.com. Make sure you're taking advantage of the tax opportunities you can do. Day trade, tax protected day trade in your crypto IRA, not just Bitcoin, but Ethereum and 85 or 87 other altcoins as well. And of course, head over to GetArculus.com. Make sure you have good. It's the start of the year. If you haven't done it yet, get some good cold storage. GetArculus.com to do that. Use code DC20. That's all I got, everybody. Adios. Over and out.
We just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor, Arculus. They are a cold storage hardware wallet, helps you secure all of your digital assets for the future. Just tap this thing to the back of your phone and boom, you're in. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, but also wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the Disco fam. You've supported us a lot over the years. If you want to support the channel now, just use the code DC20. It gets you 20% off this card. It's the #1 way you can support this channel going forward. Thank you for your support. We'll see you at the top.